Ladies and gentlemen, it is lightning round. It is Wednesday. It is the eve of the first game of the NFL season. We are ready to tackle the pressing issues of the NFL season. We will talk about week one. We will talk about all things the NFL, your favorite players, maybe our favorite players. We're going to get into lightning round, and it starts right now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's lightning round time. Gary, Coop, how you brothers doing?
It's good to see you, man. Feels like being back home again, finally.
Right. It's awesome. I just wish that back with my brothers, except my brothers didn't tell me that we were all supposed to wear like apricot colored shirts tonight.
If you check your damn email, you would have gotten the memo, like, come on, you got to get with the group. You got to get with this going.
I know. We've done this multiple times. Me and Gary both wore the same SFB shirts. I mean, one of these days, all three of us are going to bring it together. We're going to look hot as fuck.
I know.
Sorry, you two.
Yeah, they're great. We were going to make 14 cents off this video. Now we can't.
We cut that out.
Come on. Anyway, welcome in lightning round. We got football tomorrow, boys.
It's wild. So wild.
I am ready. Gary, Coop, I am Kevin Tompkins, and this is Lightning Round. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Hit that fun little subscribe button. We've been putting out videos left and right for the NFL season, our fantasy football video, our player previews, minute-long bites of knowledge for every single relevant player in fantasy. We got a few more coming down the pike before Thursday, but let's get into some of our week one talk here because week one is upon us, and we got some burning questions. We got players that we're excited to see, guys that are weighing on us as far as, situations we want to monitor. But let's talk about the good. Let's start off with the good stuff. Who are we excited to see? What kind of situations are we looking at and being like, this is going to be awesome? Like, what are we doing here?
I'll jump in because I can't contain myself. We
have
a podcast for what feels like a month. And it's probably the last week where I get to do this without any hesitation because right now it's pure optimism. So I'm taking my last chance to weigh in. I can't wait to see who wins the 49ers quarterback competition. Whoever is going to be starting, I think that they're going to be good. I don't care. Like, people don't like Jimmy for whatever reason because he has his flaws. But this is going to be the first time that Jimmy G, assuming he's starting, is going to have a healthy Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle all on the field at the same time. The entire offense is healthy. You get to add in Raheem Mostert, who he's been shot out of a cannon yet again, looks just as fast as ever, and you get to add in Trey Sermon. Not to mention they're going against the Lions, so that's just going to make it hella fun. But now we also get an offensive line that, they haven't shored up their guard position, but they got to add Alex Mack at center, and center was always kind of a big issue for them. And Alex Mack, even if he's a few years past his prime, is awesome. He's going to be able to read the defense and be able to take a little bit off of Jimmy, off of Trey, if Trey Lance ends up getting in there. I think it's going to be a good upgrade. Plus, of course, we have Trent Williams, who was already there as our left tackle. Going against this leaky secondary with the Lions, I'm starting Jimmy this week. I have got him at the end of drafts and as my QB3, QB4 in Superflex. And I'm 100% going to be starting him in my QB2 spot. I know, like in my beer league, I'm starting him over Derek Carr going against the Ravens. There's a chance that Jimmy ends up just looking awesome and they just ride him hot hand until he cools down. And maybe that doesn't happen until February, 8th, 9th? We'll see what happens. So, and if it turns out to be Trey Lance that ends up being the quarterback, dude, it's going to be fireworks. Everybody's going to be losing their mind. Kyle Shanahan has said he hasn't said who's going to be starting. He said, we'll wait and see on Sunday. I think we're all expecting it to be Jimmy, but who knows? We might even get to see some Trey Lance sprinkled in there. So my question for you two, am I overly excited for Jimmy just because I'm a homer? Doesn't this make some sense that this offense is going to be on fire?
Yeah, I mean, from my thought process is kind of similar to yours in terms of this week. In in most times in these situations, you might think, okay, this is probably one of the worst teams in the league. They might take their foot off the gas. They're it's the biggest spread. I think it's 7.5. If not, the Cowboys and Buccaneers might be close. But I mean, you would think that, but this is going to be an extension of the tryout. If essentially it's live tryouts, you know what I mean? So if you're Jimmy G, you're going out there to prove this is my job. We're here to dominate. We're going to destroy this team, and we're just going to keep steamrolling. So, I mean, I don't really have a ton of Jimmy G just because the way I don't do a ton of super flex, and the ones I do, I go heavy on quarterback early and usually take 3. But with Jimmy G, like if you're in a DFS, he's pretty much free. You know what I mean? So get yourself a piece of it and enjoy the steamrolling of a team, the Lions, that was built to lose. Like they purposely did exactly what the Dolphins did in 2019, trade the quarterback, carry all this dead cap, So this is probably going to be quite the whooping in favor of the 49ers, So you should be excited, especially as a 49ers fan.
Yeah, and Coop, what did you call him? You call him a ghost ship or a skeleton crew? Both, I think.
A skeleton crew on a ghost ship transporting dead cap into the afterlife, I believe is what I previously said. Something along those lines, but that's pretty much what it is. So
that is the best. I mean, that is the best way to put the Detroit Lions.
Collecting compensatory picks along the way, just pulling them out of the water.
They are the spoiler alert, the Greyjoy fleet that's just sitting out there in the middle of the water now.
You gotta be careful about an upset because what is dead may never die,
right? Trust me. Oh, it can't be dead. I guess you can be dust. I mean, dust ain't alive. That whole team is dust outside of 2 players. But yeah, if you're the 49ers, you're happy to at least, this is pretty much an extended tryout, seeing what you have with Jimmy Garoppolo, and you're not throwing Trey Lance out there. You don't have to. But the one thing I'm concerned about, I'm from a fantasy standpoint, how you're going to divvy that up between Kittle, Ayuk, and Debo. And I'm looking at Ayuk as kind of he's going to be getting those deep shots. Kittle's going to be working more intermediate. Debo's going to be working at the line of scrimmage. And I think once Lance gets in there, that's going to probably tilt that more toward Debo at the beginning until Lance gets his legs under him, and then he's probably going to be taking more shots to Ayuk. So that could be something where if you've got Ayuk, and you can kind of Lance, if he's announced a starter whenever he is, that's something to maybe monitor there. But with Garoppolo, he's got rapport with these guys, maybe not so much as Ayuk, but certainly Kittle and Debo. So that's something I'm definitely monitoring. But yeah, at least in this matchup, I don't know how many times they have to pass. I mean, you're probably going to be splitting, however many carries, 55 to 60 carries between Mostert and Sermon, and maybe even who's the third? So yeah, I mean that's probably what you're leaning to, and that's probably going to condense the score down. You're probably getting a little bit, but you're not going to be expecting a lot out of the passing game. That might just kind of be we'll really see in week 2 for the 49ers.
I'm just going to drop my last nugget here, which is I don't believe in doing bold takes. They're really fun to listen to, but my one bold take for the year: Jimmy G will start all 20 games and he will win the 20th game this season.
Oh my God.
If he's not going to win all 20, but he's going to start all 20.
That's
they keep going. If they're like,
Gary, we promised we weren't going to get shit-faced drunk tonight.
He said
if they have 12 or 13 wins, why would they bench Jimmy? There's no reason.
You started this by saying this might be a little bit of a homer take.
And whenever you say it might be, it means it absolutely is.
It might be a little bit of a homer take, and it ended with you guys winning the Super Bowl.
Hell yeah! Oh, I got more, man.
But who is to say that they don't pull a Miami where it doesn't matter what Garoppolo does? And, after the bye week or after a certain point of time, they're going to say Trey Lance is in and he's the guy. That's certainly within the realm of possibility. It may not even matter what Garoppolo does. If he's lighting the world on fire, it is what it is. And that's kind of a dubious decision. And everybody and their mother's going to be talking about it. But that could happen, considering what they spent to move up to get Trey Lance.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I will no longer be talking about the 49ers the rest of this show. I promise.
Now you're allowed to. Just make sure
for
you warn everyone.
for the next 5 minutes.
Just warn everyone how big of a homer take it might be. Little too big. If that's a little one.
I said it was a bold take.
If that's a little one, I can only imagine what the big ones are like.
Oh boy.
That's what my wife says.
Yeah.
Coop, what you got?
I got a player. So I've been excited to see this player since last year. I know all three of us. I mean, jointly we have at least one share, a very expensive share of him. But I'm going with Dak Prescott, man. And I know there's a little bit of concern about the shoulder, or whatever, but they say he's fully cleared. And we're talking about a guy that last season, through the first few games, he was not only on pace to set the record for most pass attempts in the season, he was on pace to obliterate it. I mean, only one player has ever thrown over 700 passes. That was Matt Stafford. I think it was 727. Dak was on pace for over 800. Over 800. I think second after Stafford was Drew Bledsoe with like 690 something. And it's like, that was during I remember it being just a ridiculous year, throwing like 50 passes every game. And Dak was doing that last year. They might not need to do it, but that offense actually wasn't terrible with Dalton and no O-line. You know what I mean? Like they were kind of middle of the pack in scoring. They were like top 10 in first downs. You know what I mean? So with Dak back, with Tyron Smith back, Zach Martin back, Blake Jarwin back, Leo Collins. Yeah, I mean, he's out for one game. I mean, but it's like in general, I'm excited to see him this season. You know what I mean? This offense could be electric. Everyone seems to love all the wide receivers in it. So, I'm pumped to see Dak, man. And it's like you root for guys coming back from injury, and there's no reason not to root for Dak Prescott, in my opinion. You got some of these guys that are kind of troublemakers doing this or that, but he doesn't deserve any hate at this point, unless you just in general hate the Cowboys, which I know is a huge population of fan bases and fans in general. But for me, I am a fantasy football fan. And if you like fantasy football, there's nothing better than a really good, crazy offense and a terrible defense. And I think the Cowboys are going to give the people what they want.
Hell
the Cowboys are like that to a T. It's going to be absolutely fun for sure. Diving into that a little bit more is really the kind of dichotomy between those three receivers too, because as we've seen in Michael Gallup is playing more in the slot. And what we saw last year was CeeDee Lamb coming off the field when they pick it out to two wide receivers. So, CeeDee Lamb, and we talked about this the whole time, pretty much this offseason about CeeDee Lamb, seeing his spike in ADP going up into that 2-3 turn. Is that spot justified for a guy that's going to be coming off the field? And now we saw in training camp and leading up to preseason, there's a pretty good chance he's not coming off the field. So that wheels up for me. And that doesn't mean Gallup is going to be a bad value. I mean, they're going to be playing a lot of 11 personnel, so they're going to have plenty of opportunity to throw. Gallup is still a pretty solid, maybe a 6th or 7th round guy, if you got him there. So I have no worries about him. Amari Cooper is pretty steady, and we'll see how that shakes out next year when, Amari Cooper can come off the books, but as it stands right now, those three wide receivers, Ezekiel Elliott, I would throw Dalton Schultz and Blake Jarwin in there too. You've got all these targets in almost a perfect storm. What should have happened last year had Dak Prescott not gotten hurt, we could just see that encore this year, hopefully for a full season.
Yeah. Just to add to that, so I was the one leading the charge on saying, let's pump the brakes a little bit, right, with the CeeDee Lamb thing. Now that I'm thinking about the way, like you were saying, where Gallup's learning the slot, and now they might be able to mix and match, right?
Yeah.
You do a little bit of everything. What that kind of does, like the Rams did it, positionless football, right? If you're able to mix and match and everyone can play the slot, everyone can play outside, now you truly enter the world of targets are earned, right? And in that situation where it's like everyone's playing, moving around, I have no doubt that CeeDee Lamb can earn the targets for himself. I have no doubt that Amari can too. Gallup will get his as well. But even last year, Gallup played at 90% snap share and Lamb was the better player. So I think even if it's even, you give Lamb the benefit of the doubt.
Do you have any concern for week one without Zach Martin? I mean, they have a good line, but Zach Martin is he is a rock solid piece. And they are going up against one of the toughest D lines in the NFL. I mean, definitely not the toughest, but one of the toughest in the NFL. Like, yeah, I know that like you're never benching Dak, right? I'm not worried about that, but it's just going to be weird to see what they do. I'm just curious if like even like a Blake Jarwin or if you were thinking of starting him, is going to be a tough start because they're going to be pulling in extra tight ends on that line this week.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is I'm a fantasy football fan. I really don't care if the Cowboys win or lose. I'm a Patriots fan. I care if the Patriots win.
I love it.
You know what I mean? So like, if the Cowboys lose by 10 and Dak throws 75 times, awesome. You know what I mean? I'd rather have them lose by 10 and the score be like 60-50 than for them to win by 3 and the score be 13-10. Like, I'm looking for fireworks tomorrow. You know, like I'm a Tom Brady fan, huge Tom Brady fan, always have been, but I don't care if he wins either. You know what I mean? I'm out to see something awesome on the first game of the season. Later on, we can get into the intricacies of who's going to make the playoffs and if, you know, Jimmy G is going to win 20 straight games or not. Sorry, play 20 straight games and win the 20th. But, you know, I think that for me personally, like I root for the Patriots, but I care about fantasy football first and foremost. So that's my feeling on that. And I am concerned. They're 7.5 or 8 point dogs where you look. I think they are going to get their ass kicked, and they probably should, especially without Zach Martin, who's awesome. So, you know, I'm a little worried for Zeke. I'm a little worried for, you know, some of those guys. I would never start Tony Pollard in a game like this, particularly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a time and a place for guys like Pollard and Madison where you think they're going to send out, you know, the water boy to end the game with some carries, but I don't think this is that one. This is a badass team, the Buccaneers, you know.
Yeah, this might be a boat race.
I hope it is.
Yeah. I mean, I just want it to be. I just want it to be close. I just want it to be closer because maybe, you know, we've seen offenses are a little bit slower than the defenses to pick up in the beginning of the season. So, you know, that could be something too. But I think, you know, it's definitely going to be fun. Exactly. Yeah. Pray for Dak. That's where we're at. And also, Michael, you're telling the Packer fan, trust me, I don't have a lot of faith in Mike McCarthy. That's been pretty much ingrained in my brain. You know, there's a situation or player that I'm excited to see. I'm going to go to Carolina here. You know, with Joe Brady, they've swapped out Teddy Bridgewater for Sam Darnold now. You know, Sam Darnold with an average 8 out last season and the third lowest adjusted completion percentage versus, you know, Teddy Bridgewater, who had a bottom 6 ADOT, more risk averse, but had the second highest adjusted completion percentage, adding Christian McCaffrey in for a full complement of games, adding in Terrace Marshall, you know, with DJ Moore, with Robbie Anderson. I want to see if DJ Moore, who in the preseason was working, you know, short and deep, you know, if I've talked about this, and that's the main crux of my conviction that DJ Moore can be a wide receiver 1, can be, you know, that top 7 or 6 wide receiver in fantasy, where if he can combine those two skill sets that he has shown separately in the last, you know, few seasons of his career, he can be that, you know, Diggs like breakout of 2021. But how that whole thing is going to mesh with target distribution, with McCaffrey being back, Terrace Marshall, Robbie Anderson, and then, you know, all that with Darnold at the controls, and then Joe Brady, who's a great offensive mind. Yeah. It's a really interesting scenario to see how that shakes out. I'm very excited to see how that's going to go, and they get to play the Jets, who, you know, that's good. If there's a boat race, it might be that
revenge game.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, the revenge game narrative. Let's throw that one up there too.
I'm so excited. I mean, this team that just outside of CMC, like they're just question marks at these guys. And I mean, it's going to be a fun week because you're going against the Jets, and I think that they're just going to ball out, and it's going to be really fun. And I've recently come around to the idea people are sleeping on Sam Darnold, and I'm excited for him to wake people up.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Gase has just been such a nightmare. It's like we get to see with him in a real offense, explosive offense, you know, where they let everybody loose, the tight ends, wide receivers, everybody, and, you know, pass catching back, the whole deal. And, you know, the Jets will be fun because it's an open book. You know, the defense, like, you know, your ex guy there, Robert Saleh, he's like recrafting the defense from loose parts because he's switching it from 3-4 to 4-3. He's got all these guys at his disposal on offense, where there's no set, you kind of let it be itself. You do pseudo tryouts during the season, and you don't say, these are the starters and these are the backups. You just say, you're in now, and here's your chance. And then now you're in, and I kind of love that. I loved watching the Dolphins do that for a little while there with, they had Isaiah Ford playing like 30% of the snaps, and then they just abruptly traded him. They were like, we tried you, now you were traded. Then they did like Malcolm Perry. I think that they're going to do a lot of that stuff too. So, I'm kind of excited to see them mixing and matching in that sense.
Completely. It's going to be fun, and I just got to throw out there my dark horse for our offensive rookie of the year, Zach Wilson.
I don't think that's really a dark horse, honestly. I mean,
if he is, I would say T-Law, these three other quarterbacks above him, and then these other running backs, wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's going to be getting, he's going to be playing 17 games. I mean, James Morgan isn't going to be back there, taking starts left and right, for the Jets. So they had the conviction to take him at, the second overall pick, taking him ahead of Lance, ahead of Fields. So clearly they know that, he's our guy. He's going to get every shot. And, like we talk about Lance and Fields, I mean, they could get in week 3. They could get in week 9, for all we know. So they might not play enough to maybe warrant consideration. And the only other guy that could be there outside of a Najee Harris blow up would be Trevor Lawrence. So,
Yep, totally.
Yeah. All right.
Should
so
we, pivot?
Yeah, we got the good out of the way. Let's or maybe some stuff that we're a little uneasy about. Maybe a player or a situation that, where we don't have the most confidence in, or, we're looking at a player and we're like, well, I don't know if he can, fit, or, whatever the scheme may be. But, whoever wants to go first, what's that situation for you guys?
Let me go, because I got the scariest one for a lot of people. And my pick is, it might be the most obvious, but Saquon Barkley, man. I've taken him in a couple leagues myself, and I've taken him early, and I've taken him because he fell way too far. But anytime that, you don't get that full go early, and, he's not cleared and he's not ready to go, and you have a team like the Giants where, if it were a team like the Cowboys, where I'm confident in the offense and confident in the rest of everything else, then it's not so bad for me, because I'm like, oh, he'll come back around and he'll be fine. But when you have a quarterback that threw 10 touchdowns, had 21 turnovers, like he could just be bad. And if that's the case, that could be a nightmare for Barkley. And we're already talking about, they were a better run blocking line than they were a pass blocking line, but there's really no promises with this Giants team. So if you have a bad Giants team with a limited snap Saquon Barkley, I haven't felt this scared about a pick since I took Le'Veon Bell when he was holding out, and then he held out the entire season, and it turned out to be a dead pick. But in this case, it's not going to be a dead pick, but you could be taking somebody who is not fully ready to play, and as far as we know, sometimes there's these guys, unfortunately, you look at guys like Marquise Lee, or, guys like that had nerve damage and, never really came all the way back. There's concern, especially when it takes so long. Tariq Cohen's taking a really long time too, and no one's touching him at all. But Saquon Barkley, the upside's so good, you have to, but you also have to be concerned. I mean, are you guys starting him this week if you have him? I feel like you have to.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I have him. And actually, you know what? I don't think I have him in one managed league, so at least I don't have to make that decision. But if I did, I probably would have to. I mean, probably you're handcuffed to him at that point. But if you got him, early in the offseason, I mean, I don't think there's any. It doesn't matter where you got him; you have to start him. I'm trying to come up with, a yin yang kind of thing where, right. If you took him here, even if you got him in the second round, you have to start him.
You got to start him. And I feel like actually at certain points early in the offseason, his ADP was higher, because it was like, closer you got to the offseason, that's when it was like, wait a second, something is weird here, because, but he
doesn't go in my RB1 spot. He goes in my flex if I can, or at least my RB2 spot.
I think
to know what he did.
That's safe, Gary. I think that's. I mean, honestly, I would put him somewhere. I think. Do they play at 1 o'clock? I think they do.
The Giants. The Giants. I'm pulling it up right now. Let's see here. Giants play at their afternoon game.
Before
they play Denver.
So I definitely put them in your flex.
Yeah.
Just in case, you know what I mean? Like I always put the later they play, I move them to flex. Just you never know, you know what I mean? Like we've just had a game get moved because of a hurricane, so like with COVID too, you definitely want to, there's a pro tip for everybody. Move your later guys into your flex just in case. I mean, we watched Nate Burleson break his arm because he was trying to save a pizza. You know what I mean? Like anything could happen here.
Yeah. Brandon Marshall slipped out of McDonald's bag.
Right.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw this in here. Let's just take a little slight detour here. Answer our first fantasy question of the season in the stream. For week 1 flex, Kareem Hunt, Jacoby Myers, Marcus Callaway, Justin Jackson if Eckler misses. Which Eckler, didn't practice today, so that's something concerning, But that's the thing with the Chargers. It could be Justin Jackson, could be Josh Kelly. That's the thing. We don't really know. We have an idea, but they could go Ty Scarborough on all of us, and
with this question, I need to know if it's half or full PPR because it totally it 100% affects my decision. I think between Jacoby Myers and Marcus Callaway, at least a little bit.
Yeah, me at all.
So you're starting Marcus
without question.
What
Marcus Callaway is going to have Jair Alexander, and what was it? We were talking about when these guys. You're talking about the Tyrell Williams effect. If that's your best guy. That guy's
full
never
PPR.
used to being on the top corners. And Marcus Callaway, I just think he's going to get Jair because who else do they have to pass to? They literally have no one besides Kamara.
They're converted.
Double J.
Juwan, yeah, but I mean they're not going to
against the Chiefs. So
they're not going to put so Juwan Johnson played 29 snaps in the slot. He only played 3 out wide. There's no way they move Jair into the slot. So you're right. It'll be either Traquan Smith or Marcus Callaway, whoever they want to completely erase from the game. So that is risky. Yeah, you're right. So Marcus Callaway's off the board. I think Hunt's probably the play. I mean, Jacoby Myers, we just don't know what the distribution is going to be look like, but he's such a low ceiling play. I mean, this is a guy that he's not fast. He's never scored. And I'm wearing a Patriots jersey, by the way, so I can say this stuff. He's not fast. He's never scored a touchdown, right? And last year on a team that was clearly in a bridge year, he caught a good number of targets, but he caught those from a different quarterback. Everyone's in the same boat now, So I think Kareem Hunt probably is the right play.
And Jackson's going against whoever the Chargers are going against the Washington football team, and I'm not starting a backup running back against them. Their D-line's too good, and they have good linebackers.
Yeah, I would agree. I would probably go Hunt there. I'm not feeling too great about it. Yeah, Callaway. Yeah, no thanks. I hope Green Bay just absolutely erases him. Would you be more comfortable starting Saquon in PPR? I mean, I would. I mean, you're probably going to get 12, 13 points out of him, I would say. But
yeah,
I mean, if that's you have to.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, I've just invested too much. I'm going for it. You know what I mean? Like, especially in PPR. I mean, Gus Edwards, 238-pound plotter. I mean, he's rarely caught passes. I mean, even J.K. Dobbins didn't catch passes. Look at Greg Roman for the 4 years he was the 49ers offensive coordinator. Frank Gore went from catching 50-plus passes a game to catching on average around 15 or so. Like Greg Roman just doesn't like throwing it to the running back, and that's fine. But like in full PPR, that's scary to me.
Yeah.
Right. I will take a slight detour, and I'll just say, if you guys were with us a few weeks ago, we did our Football Guys Players Championship. The bid groups, we did our waivers actually yesterday. We haven't got the big groups are disabled right now until they tabulate, but we will check back in if you are as invested in this team as we are. But we will check that here, Gary.
Because questions are coming in, give a quick reminder for Sunday.
That's right. So myself, Mr. Gary Haddow and Ms. Brittany Flynn, we will be doing the Calm Before the Storm. If you were with us last year, we had Fighting Chance Live, our Sunday kickoff show. We will be doing that at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, going over injuries, inactives, going over your start and sit questions, doing all of that. So it's right here on the Lightning Round channel. We will be doing all of that, and it'll be a fun time. So make sure you join us bright and early as you're setting your lineups. Inactives will be out as we are streaming, and we will make sure that we get all those to you.
Let's do it.
And by the way, the whole Antonio Brown, oh boy.
He's going to eat.
Yeah. Antonio Brown, Damian Harris, Marcus Callaway, or Laviska Shenault.
Especially with Godwin a little banged up.
Yeah,
we don't know what's going on there with the squad. Antonio Brown is like, I mean, he's got to be a start of the week for
he's I mean, he came back, and once he was even remotely acclimated to the offense, he scored a touchdown pretty much every week through the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
I'm pretty sure that Brady would happily be impregnated by Antonio Brown if he could.
Right. He's never stopped being good at football. You know what I mean? That's the thing. He showed up for one game for the Patriots. He scored a touchdown. He figured stuff out. He scored a touchdown. I tweeted out earlier this week, interesting fact here. Antonio Brown is closer in age to Kyle Trask than he is to Tom Brady.
Yeah, I did see that. That's pretty wild, not gonna lie.
I did the math, man. Kyle Trask is just over 23 years old, right? Yeah. Antonio Brown is 33, and Brady is
43 going on
44. Yeah, so it's like one is 9-year difference, one is 10-year difference, but he's actually closer in age to Kyle Trask. That's how ridiculously old Brady is, and how, I mean, Antonio Brown's kind of old, but I mean, we've seen guys be productive through this age. I mean, we've seen
Jerry Rice.
Well, Jerry Rice,
it's normal guys like
9,000 years old. Yeah,
Jerry Rice at this age tore his ACL, and then he had like 5 more $1,000 season. You know what I mean? Like Jerry Rice doesn't count.
Yeah,
Jerry Rice doesn't count, but
he's a robot.
But like Steve Smith, Anquan Bolden, Larry Fitzgerald, you know, those guys were all good for years and years and years. Passed into their 35, 36-year-old season.
Yep.
So it's not impossible.
Not impossible. So heading back into the players that were, kind of nervous or shaky, but I'll drop mine. It's not really one specific player, but it's a group of players on a team. It's the Eagles pass catchers. It's pretty ambiguous when you're looking at the fact that, we had Dallas Goedert, who was going off it as a top 7 tight end up until when Zach Ertz, they squashed all of their problems with the front office. And now, Zach Ertz is back. So that kind of brings Goddard down a little bit there. Zach Ertz is still younger than Travis Kelce. I don't think he is dead. People want to say, oh, he just turned 30. Okay. Shit, I'm 37. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 37.
But he bleached his hair. So.
I'm a man. I got a beard.
That offsets. He looks younger.
That is still the best press conference I've ever seen, which, by the way, the Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy. Go Google that one. But then you have Devonta Smith, the Heisman winner, rookie, 10th overall pick. You've got Jalen Reagor, who, by all accounts, we thought we saw opportunity there in taking him when people were getting hurt, and he kind of burned people. He got hurt right before the season last year. And then you've got, the slot, Quez Watkins is up and coming. You've still got, other guys that are like Greg Ward and John Hightower. And then you've got Miles Sanders, who apparently can't catch a football. But then you've got Kenny Gainwell, who could be probably the second or third best route runner on that team. And he's a running back. I don't want to see that shaking head, Coop. But that, to my point, there's a lot of...
I was trying to shake my headset.
There's a lot of ambiguity in the Eagles pass catchers. And we can assume... fairly certainly that Devonta Smith should be the top, volume target getter. But after that, it's up in the air, and it could be, honestly, Zach Ertz creeping up toward another 90 to 100 target season, and you're taking him in what? He's free in drafts.
I mean, he had 72 targets in 11 games last year, was it? Or I know he had 72 targets. How many games was it? 11 games, 72 targets. I mean, he didn't catch any of them. But, I mean, they were coming his way. And we've seen him catch him in the past. And I just want to say that I have an itch. So, Kenny Gainwell. Thumbs down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. We're wrong sometimes.
But sometimes the zero wide receiver guys, those are the plays you got to make. Us living safely in the land of owning wide receivers like normal people, and then some people got to take the Tevin Colemans and the Kenneth Gainwells of the world.
I will never have Tevin Coleman. Ever.
You made that very clear.
Abundantly clear.
To JB Barry. Shout out JB and Tevin Coleman. Yeah. It's JB's birthday today, so let's be nice to Tevin Coleman, please.
Happy birthday, JB. I hope Tevin Coleman is running back 40 for you this year.
That would be a win. That's I think it's above ADP.
That's double where I have him.
Ooh, Tevin Coleman.
All right. So Gary, is Gary up?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, sorry, my dad called me and I was kind of weird because it was kind of late, so I was texting him. Devonta Smith is so good. Like it's so fun watching him play that while I'm nervous about the pass catchers, I think they are also one of those teams that are going to be sneaky good. I think we all wrote off Jalen Reagor. I mean, I traded him for like peanuts this offseason during a draft for like a third rounder or something. I don't know, just because I wanted to clear space and get younger. I can't remember what it was. And I can definitely see a world. Like, I mean, how high have we been on Jalen Hurts? And I know it's because of his legs, but we have discounted, I feel like, a little bit the fact that like this could come together. Like these guys could very easily be better than Alshon and Deshaun together, right? Because they're completely different, but I think they could be better. So I think that I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens, but I think that I'm like the most optimistic man in the world the day before week 1. And I just think that every team is going to be amazing and I want to hug everyone.
I just did a draft with my girlfriend, and that's pretty much what she sounded like making the draft. Since making her pick, she's like, "He's such a kind face." She did not like Mike Davis, though. I don't know. He's an unfortunate looking fella.
Did she look at his legs?
I showed her the quads. I think she actually ended up taking him after that. But before that, she was not having it, dude.
You think Mike Davis is good, let me tell you about AJ Dillon in the 9th.
Oh yeah. Oof.
She did. She calls Zeke her crop top boy. She likes Robbie Anderson's hair because it looks like Cynthia from the Rugrats. She thinks, what is it? She thinks that Tyreek Hill looks like a little baby Grinch. So she's got her players she likes and doesn't like. So, and she usually ruins her team for reaching for them. So, but I mean, those guys are all pretty good.
Speaking of the Grinch and ruining their teams, I want to jump to the Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury. I actually like what the Cardinals have done from a GM perspective. So this has nothing to do with Niners bias or anything. This has to do with the fact that I was super high on Chase Edmonds, and I've just come crashing back down to earth because I feel like people are forgetting James Conner. So this is a Chase Edmonds segment. I just feel like everybody has forgotten how good James Conner was because they assume that he is going to be injured. It's week 1. He is not injured. And last year, Kenyon Drake had 10 rushing touchdowns and 240 carries in 15 games. Excuse me. And while we would expect that Edmonds is going to be more integrated, like they went and got James Conner. Do we forget that in 2018, everybody just felt like he was electric and lit and the NFL on fire? Maybe it was just because of where we got him and the whole Lev Bell holdout. But, I mean, he scored 12 touchdowns and he had 55 receptions. So we know what he can do. And this offensive line got way better this year. They picked up Rodney Hudson and another guy, I can't remember his name right now. And they're going to have a better team. Even if you then set aside James Conner and say he's eventually going to get injured, you still have the fact that there's Kyler with his legs. And what's going to happen? I mean, Kyler runs rather than dump-offs. And they brought in Rondale Moore to potentially also fill some of that dump-off, some of the carries. There's just all these things working against Chase Edmonds. So I'm just nervous to see what happens. Like if he doesn't get the goal line work, there is a realistic chance that Chase Edmonds is an RB3 or 4 and potentially somebody he's potentially somebody that you don't even start for most of the season because he ends up just, I don't know, getting some catches and having some runs. Admittedly, he does have a ceiling, and that ceiling is Austin Eckler in my mind, where maybe he's not getting the touchdowns, but he is between the 20s, and he's electric. But that's like so far removed, and Justin Herbert doesn't run. So I'm just so nervous about Chase Edmonds. I put my money where my mouth is. I traded Chase Edmonds and James Conner with a couple other random pieces to get 2 picks in the middle of one of my drafts, so I could draft Rondale Moore and Terrace Marshall Jr. In a dynasty. And like people were like, "Man, you're just trading away this backfield." And I was like, because I think they eat into each other, and I just think that we're going to be looking at this next year as, oh, those are just 2 guys that you get as bench fillers and hope that you can flex them on a given week, and maybe there's an injury. So it's terrifying.
Yeah, and I think with like, and the thing about it too is, and why I'm okay with you trading both of them, is that we've seen this before where you like try and monopolize this cheap backfield, and then the team, when they complete the rebuild, you don't even know that they're still kind of working on it, and they complete it and they bring in that piece that just vaporizes everything else. Like, this is kind of one of those situations. I like James Conner, but I mean, it's certainly a red flag that he would sign for so little money. You know what I mean? He signed for $1 million, man. He signed for what James White signed for, right? Like, I mean, Kenyon Drake signed for like $12 million.
11 guaranteed.
Right. Like, absurd how much more some of these guys signed for. And like James Conner signed for the bare minimum. So, and it should make you even more scared, Gary, for Chase Edmonds, because think about it, it's like, if you sign for that little, I feel like you're at least promised the work to, they tell you, hey, come play here. We'll let you play, and you play for little.
Rebuild your value.
It's like, you can look at it from both sides, but I mean, just building the backfield that way, when you have a mobile QB, they're kind of saying we don't prioritize it. So I'm fine with you trading both those guys, And I only have one other question for you, Gary, real quick. Did you switch out to that other camera?
Yeah, buddy.
You're looking crispy today, bro. You're looking clean, dude. That's
KFC extra crispy.
How's your girlfriend?
I could shut the door shut back there.
Yeah. You might want to put that ironing board against it.
I'm gonna cover Tom Brady's eyes. He doesn't, I got the reflection on him.
I finally made the switch.
Like, hey, I'm an American.
I tried to do so long, and I was like,
you're looking.
These guys convinced me.
I like that. Yeah. So I can't believe you had that this whole time, though. That's funny because it looks great.
She's been telling me for 1.5 years to use this. And literally, I was listening to Kevin on the Get Real podcast with Casey Kasem, and it got me super fired up for podcasting again. And I was like, I'm going to get this mic. Yeah, I'm going to look hella good.
Gary with that camera was like in Dumb and Dumber when Lloyd had the extra pair of gloves.
For real, though. I was like, this is the camera I use. And you're like, oh, like this one? You had an extra pair of gloves this whole time. Film it, dude. You were recording on like a Nokia brick phone before.
No, or like a potato.
Hey, I play Snake while we podcast.
Oh my
I was like,
god!
Gary, you have a phone, and you're like, oh, I have this. So you pull out like a fucking iPad,
a freaking 4K freaking webcam.
Right? Yeah. Okay. There you go. Well, you look great.
Yeah, you do look KFC extra crispy. So I'm taking the cheapest option in that Cardinals backfield. That's good. That's Connor. I mean, the thing is, Edmonds and Connor are both going to get high value touches. Edmonds, through the air, but Connor, I think it was Pat Carrain who said that Edmonds has one career inside the 5 carry. Yeah. So I mean, that kind of spells out how that backfield should operate, given that history. But, and the thing is, Connor can do all of that too. It's just, can the dude stay healthy? He can catch the ball. He can run inside the tackles. He can, be a goal line guy. He can do all of that. He's just got to stay on the field. So with that, like I said, I'm always taking the cheaper guy, but I'm very happy to get a guy that is as talented as, we were taking him at the 2-3 turn last year, James Conner, and he was like a rising guy where we were ready for him to kind of blow up again and be healthy, and then just never materialized. And now here he is in the 8th or 9th round. But yeah, Give me Connor at cost. Edmonds, I think I took a head share or two of him just in case, but I'll always side toward Connor.
Yes, definitely.
Yep. All right. Well, our bidding and the FFPC is still not up yet, so we will continue on here. So the third real question that we have, and we'll wind her down with this one question that we want answered in week 1. So if we've been talking about stuff for the entire off season, and it's all been, most of it's been pretty speculative, but we want one question answered or one thing addressed that we'll know by the end of week 1. This is how it is. What is that thing?
Well, Kev, actually, Gary went first the first time. I went first the second time. So I think it's your turn, my man.
Okay. The one thing, what I want answered is I want to know how the Titans offense is going to run with a new offensive coordinator in Todd Downing. The fact that they went out and acquired Julio Jones. I want to know that kind of split. Are they going to pass more with Julio and AJ Brown there, or are they going to keep running status quo with Derrick Henry? In by all accounts, people have, the off-season hype videos. Oh, look, it's Derrick Henry catching a pass. Great. He's no more than 19 catches in a season. So I'll believe that when I see it, and I hope I'm wrong if he catches even 25 to 30 balls. But, I think that offense has a chance based on what they've done in this offseason. And it's a little bit conflicting because they went out in free agency and did get Josh Reynolds. And then they went out and traded for Julio Jones. They didn't go out and get anybody of note, in the tight end position. They kept Anthony Firkser, and he's slated to be the starting tight end when Jonnu Smith went over to the Patriots in free agency. So that could be a little bit conflicting, but I do want to see if they are going to be more. They're not going to be pass heavy by any stretch. That's just not how that's going to go. I don't think that, that efficiency that Ryan Tannehill has shown the last couple seasons, that wouldn't carry over with volume. I don't think, but if they're going to take more shots with Julio on the field, if they're going to take, AJ Brown is a top 6 talent in this league at wide receiver. I mean, those are guys you have to pepper with targets. Those two could probably carry over half of the targets in that offense. So if you're going to spread that ball around to, all these guys, Julio, AJ Brown, and maybe Firkser get some just because they really don't have a clear cut 3. I want to know how that's going to work out. I want to see that week 1.
It's funny that you should bring that up because that was actually one of the biggest questions that John Impemba brought up last time I talked to him. And he was like, I just want to see it because it's in his mind. He, just like you said, Kev, that with a new coordinator, like all that Arthur Smith, multi-tight end, ground and pound stuff, he's like, that could be gone. And, this team is, like you just mentioned, you laid out all these weapons, man. And it's like they could be capable of so much more, which – even if they don't throw it to Derrick Henry a ton, it could even benefit Derrick Henry. It's like I'm not really picking him in any sort of PPR league, but I mean, like this team, this could be what takes them to the next level. Like, think about all those guys that are there. They didn't forget how to run the football the way Arthur Smith taught them to run it. It's like sometimes you got to bring in the guy to teach, right? And then you bring in the next guy to teach the rest of it, So I'm definitely also super interested in seeing what happens here.
Yep. Yeah, and Derrick Henry could see less stacked boxes. I believe he saw the most last season too. So, Julio Jones is, I think we were alluding to that point with Derrick Henry that he's going to be seeing a lot less guys in the box. And it's going to just round out the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Tannehill just feels like he was such a steal where he was going in drafts because
he still is.
You knew what his floor was. We've seen it. And then you still had this ceiling that I think everyone was discounting that, well, they're not going to be pass heavy. We don't know that. You don't go and get a Julio to pair with a Brown. And honestly, I think Ryan Reynolds is actually he's a solid wide receiver 3, right? Like if Julio goes down, I think that Ryan Reynolds should be a speed dial waiver wire ad.
I love him in Deadpool, by the way.
Am I not saying this wrong?
He's Josh Reynolds.
You did say Reynolds.
Love him in Deadpool. Love him.
Yeah, but dude, the thing about Ryan, I almost just said Ryan Reynolds instead of Ryan Tannehill. Like, you are ruining my brain, Gary. Please stop. Let's pour some beer on all that and shut it off.
The thing about Tannehill.
So the thing about Tannehill that a lot of people forget until he does it is that this dude isn't just your average like run of the mill like pocket passer white dude. Like, this guy played wide receiver for 4 years at Texas A&M. Like, this guy was a legitimate D1 wide receiver putting up numbers, like putting up catches, against. It's like you don't really even see that in general. So like this guy isn't a super athlete, and that's why when he scores 7 touchdowns, that's not by mistake, Yeah.
Right. You say, 11 rushing touchdowns the past 2 seasons. So, that's something that's very, it's kind of glossed over when we're all talking about these Konami code, running backs. You don't necessarily think of Tannehill in that regard, but if the dude's putting up 250 to 300 yards rushing and then averaging 5.5 touchdowns, I mean, he's right there with he's not right there with Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, don't get me wrong, but he's right up there in that kind of that next tier of guys.
He's like I would say he's like a younger Rodgers, but maybe even a little more athletic, but like just like Rodgers, when he sees it, he takes it. And you also never see him, knock on wood, you don't really see him taking the bad hits or making the bad decisions with the running. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he did enough of that in Miami.
Right. Yeah. Now it's just he seems to, when it's there, he takes it, and and that's that. It's like usually it's a score, or it's like a play where he just takes it and then he's good. I think maybe he learned his lesson, because that's the easiest way you can lose as a quarterback. And the guys that do it worse, I think, than the scramblers are the guys like Stafford and Big Ben, who just refuse to throw it away or refuse to end the play. And Tony Romo, Jay Cutler, these guys were ending their own seasons instead of just letting the play end sometimes. So like, that's a skill in itself.
Yep.
Agreed.
Coop, what's your question?
Mine's actually, usually I'm the long-winded one here, but mine is super simple. I've written about it and talked about it ad nauseum. I've told everybody what I think is going to happen, but nobody knows what's going to happen for sure. I want to see how they deploy Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry. I just want to know who's playing where, who's playing wide receiver, if Jonnu is going to actually get carries, consistent carries. If he's not, it's we know all the stats on who can do what. We know what they've done in the past. We know what the Patriots have done in the past, but we just don't know what they're going to do. And we might, McDaniels is such a crazy dude that it might never be the same from week to week. But I just want to see what it looks like for one game, And this is a big game this week. We have a division rival coming to our house in our first our rookie quarterback's first game. Hunter Henry says he's going to play. Maybe he's a little banged up, so maybe it won't be exactly what it's going to look like. But we haven't seen it really in a real live game. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And I want the reason I brought it up is that I don't even know if we're going to get an answer, but I want that question answered. I
think it's tough for them to even answer it in week 1. Belichick knows, and Josh McDaniel, like, they know how to scheme relative to the protection, especially against a divisional rival, that they'll do what they think is the best thing to do. And especially with Mac Jones still getting like his sea legs and whatnot, it's going to be really hard to tell. But I mean, are you wanting, this is a silly question, because you clearly want one of them to be better, I just could see where it's like 50-50 targets split, and they both have value, but neither one of them is like top 10 value.
So I'll tell you, if it's I've done all the research on these two fellas, right? I think that, in my opinion, Hunter Henry is going to play more of an inline role like Gronk, where they spread him out at wide receiver, because he's done a ton of that, way more than Jonnu. He's better. He's been better in man-to-man. He's been better in contested catches, right? Last year, Anthony Ferguson had more contested catches than Jonnu did. You know what I mean? So, like, in that particular skill set where you put a guy out wide, and this is Gronk was so good at, you'd put him out there and he would just beat the guy,
Yeah.
And so I think that's what Henry's going to do. And I think he gets more consistent targets. But if they were to get, and this is why when you said equal targets, I was like, well, if they get equal targets, Jonnu might be the better player because he's the better yak guy, right?
Yep.
He's the better. That's the thing is that it's like,
between the 20s and its end zone, though. I mean, I feel
Right.
like if they're 50-50
Right.
and end zone's going to be more lucrative.
right. But it's like the thing is, it's like where you look at what Jonnu does, man. He's been so good on screens. He's been so good on play action. He can break
Yeah.
the big play, and they've lined him up at fullback and hand him the ball. So it's like, in my opinion, this is the advice I've been giving people. If you're in a PPR league or typically any managed league, I trust Hunter Henry to have a more consistent role. If you're in best ball, if you can get Jonnu at a discount, like he'll have a 50-yard play at some
60-yard
point.
touchdowns.
You know, he'll have a game where he catches a touchdown and he has a rushing touchdown. You know what I mean? Like, so he's going to be I think he'll be the better best ball guy, but at the same time, he does not have a history of creating for himself in man-to-man situations. Dude, he had like 4 contested catches last year, which is, I mean, it's not good. Ferkser had nearly Ferkser had double that. I mean, it's just different skill sets. You know what I mean? So like Jonnu, I think he's a guy that needs to be schemed more for, and it's going to depend who you're playing because you know it's like Hunter Henry. If a team has a guy that's just like absolute killer, then he could get killed by that. The guy, you know, some of these Jamal Adams, some of these guys like Devondre Campbell, who your Packers have now. These are like tight end assassins, you know. So it's going to be tough, but that's why the question was, what question do we want answered?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be, but I would love to have it answered.
Yeah, it'd be nice to actually cover a tight end this year. Like I would know what that's felt like in about a decade and a half.
You got the guy now, man. You got the guy
Holy
now,
shit.
He's been good. Devondre Campbell was very good. He was covering Kittle, decent covering a lot of guys. The only reason that the Cardinals let him go, so they got him he was the hired gun tight end cover for the Falcons. The Cardinals,
he was great with the Falcons.
The Cardinals went and got him, and they were paying him a lot of money on a 1-year deal. And it was basically, let's wait and see if Isaiah Simmons can do it. And Isaiah Simmons kind of proved he can, right? So they let
superfluous.
Yeah. And when I say covered George Kittle, I meant covered him as best as anyone can. Like Kittle probably still, but when you look at it, Kittle probably wasn't super pumped about the matchup, you know? Like
probably it's not on his bucket list. Like, cool, I get to see number 58, I think, in front of me. Great, cool, yeah. Gary, round us out, brother.
All right, so I went like a pretty high level approach, and my other 2 were very week 1 specific that I wanted to see. This is probably the first few weeks, but we all go in to our drafts super hyped about every single player that we get, but we know that we're going to have roster churn at some point. And a lot of those are going to be backup running backs, guys that we know are clear-cut handcuffs, and we're holding them now. But then there's the 1As and the 1Bs, the high-end handcuffs. And I want to know how I want to see how they get deployed. And I know that that's kind of a broad question, but so specifically like the James Conner we've talked about, Trey Sermon we've talked about, Javonte Williams. I don't care what anybody says if he was being drafted above Melvin. He is still technically the 1B at this point in where we are because we don't know that he's the 1A. A.J. Dillon, Tony Pollard. So just those 5 guys right now. I mean, we have these situations where with Raheem Mostert and with Melvin Gordon, we expect the rookies in Sermon and Javonte to overtake them, but we don't know when that's going to happen. I want to see, Raheem Mostert looks awesome. Melvin Gordon supposedly looks pretty good, and they go against the Giants. I mean, he has a good chance to be successful. We've already talked about Chase Edmonds and James Conner and the role that James Conner could have and could be way more than just, he could be a 1B, but even more. Anyway, we've talked about it at length. So then we get to A.J. Dillon and Tony Pollard. Zeke and Aaron Jones are consensus top 6 picks. We have, they're like Bo and other guys on Twitter, Bo McBig Time, thinks that Tony Pollard is better than Zeke. There are, A.J. Dillon, we talked about his quads. We talked about how great of a pure runner he is. How do they deploy these guys? And is it going to be enough that elite status that we have put on Aaron Jones and Ezekiel Elliott maybe ends up being him? They're not as elite as we thought because they are going to end up splitting, giving up 30, 40, 45% of the workload when we thought they were going to be getting closer to 70. I just think that it's something that we need to watch over at least this week, but it's going to take a few weeks to figure out. all within the context of what do you do with these guys long term. And I realize that I probably picked some guys that you're not going to be dropping no matter what, but they're important pieces regardless to your rosters.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just talking in terms of AJ Dillon, I mean, Green Bay loves to, they ran with Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones for so long, and they're kind of a 1-2, and always, Aaron Jones is more managed than any of those top running backs as far as being able to, he'll come in 2 series. Jamal Williams will work 1 series. Jamal Williams was really was on the field a lot more when it was neutral game script too. So if you look at it this year, AJ Dillon isn't really the profile of a pass catching running back, though he can do it. So that's always a little bit of a wrinkle in that too, because, early on in the offseason, and I've been on record and saying it too, I think Aaron Jones gets a lot of what the receiving work that Jamal Williams seeded.
Yeah.
So, but that's certainly within the realm of possibility or range of outcome that AJ Dillon could be a lot better than people think with that. But also, if the Packers are going to be scoring all these points, why would you risk, you just paid Aaron Jones. Why would you risk putting him out there when you have a late game hammer like AJ Dillon to be able to salt stuff away? Right. So that's the kind of role that I can foresee AJ Dillon having. And I know Matt LaFleur is going to want to run the ball a lot. I mean, that is his, MO. And then Rodgers is so damn efficient in picking his spots and just gashing a defense. So, I mean, he's the damn MVP, and it is what it is. Tony Pollard's a little bit different. I just don't know if he has as much of a standalone value as we all think. With Ezekiel Elliott there, and even if he does, I mean, you're still fighting with all of these guys to even get a sliver of the pie. So as it stands right now, he's going to need quite a bit to get there. And, thinking about it, he's probably a bit overvalued when you're looking at other players with the same kind of archetype, like an Alexander Madison, who I feel like his ADP kind of shifted down because when he had that one opportunity against the Falcons last year, he fell flat. That's not his fault, because Kirk Cousins threw 2 picks in the first quarter, and they were down 21-0, I think. So he had to kind of claw back, and that kind of ruined the game script for him. So those are just a couple examples, but it's going to be very interesting to see these second running backs, especially the ones that are higher drafted, that we assume have these contingent values, to where if those top guys go down, or a role shifts, or because they don't even have to go down, these guys could force their way on the field. That's another thing that's not talked about either, is that it doesn't always have to be one guy going down. It could be the one going up.
Right. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is carving out that role, right? Because it's like, when you're a coach and you're trying to manage players, it makes it a lot easier on you when somebody's much better at one thing than the other guy, right? Like Jamal Williams was the 2nd graded pass blocking back in the league in 2019. So it's easy for you as a coach to be like, you know what? I'm going to manage these personalities by saying, hey, you know what? We all know this guy's better at this, so he's going to play this role. And
Williams was drafted ahead of Aaron Jones in the same draft.
Right. And Aaron Jones, he's scored 30 touchdowns in 30 games because they used him in high leverage situations the way that he was being used. Now that dichotomy might shift, where now it's like, okay, Aaron Jones is the guy that's been here. He's better at catching passes. We trust him in pass pro, but now maybe, Dillon vultures a touchdown if he's, if he earns that goal line role. That you have to think about what they do. So for me, like, if Dillon can carve out that role, then, that's where he'll be used. The thing with Tony Pollard for me is that last year, when they were both healthy, Zeke led the league in pass snaps. Nobody played more pass snaps in the league than Zeke. And on the other side of the coin, Zeke had 32 rushes inside the 10-yard line. Tony Pollard had 2. And Tony Pollard had the only player in the league that had more carries, a higher percentage of his carries went for 0 or negative yards than Tony Pollard was Phillip Lindsay. So it's like, I look at it and it's like, this guy's a perfect change of pace back, where you put him in there and he just, like, kind of like Raheem Mostert, like a slower Raheem Mostert, where you put him in there at the right time and he just gouges the defense, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what Pollard does, and that's why people get so excited about him. But when you start giving that guy, we saw this with Kamara and we saw this with Eckler. Like Kamara was averaging like 7 yards a carry. And then when he started getting more carries, that even including more short yardage carries, his yards per carry went down naturally. I mean, a first and goal touchdown run lowers your yards per carry. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's mathematics. You know what I mean? A 2-yard run on a 3rd and 1 is a great run for football, but it lowers your yards per carry. So that's why, like, with a guy like Tony Pollard, I'm not entirely sold on him being this like superstar. With AJ Dillon and like you look at Javonte Williams, Sermon, Connor, you can picture roles they could carve out, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. In your mind, if you can visualize that role being carved out and then they do it, that's why you draft them,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Javonte Williams, you can picture him just being better and being a nicer guy than Melvin Gordon.
Totally.
Yeah. And being kind of that second half, that guy that like a Miles Sanders or Jonathan Taylor that comes on and then it's off to the races. And also, by the way, I want to say that right time for Raheem Mostert was in the NFC Championship game against the Packers. Just saying.
What happened?
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah,
Right.
I don't think we
Yeah,
have to go into that.
The right time for him was the first 2 weeks of last season, too. I mean, the guy is electric. There's no question about it. It's just a matter of him being healthy. That offensive line's amazing.
That it is. All right. So, I hope we help some people out, kind of dissect some situations and things we want to see here. In week 1, we will log off of here. We still do not have the football guys, our bid report yet, but we will certainly try to. Yeah, it's still
at 10 Central.
No, 10 o'clock Eastern.
Oh, okay.
It's just it's going through because there's probably so many bids that happen, at least in that first period.
Sure.
We will be back next week for week 2. There's going to be a lot more videos, coming up for lightning round before then. Like I said, our Sunday show, The Calm Before the Storm, we will go through the lineups and go through injuries, and as far as all that stuff, weather, everything, your start and sit questions, all that. So, anything else, guys, before we wrap up?
Yeah, let me sneak on that Calm Before the Storm show every once in a while. I know I'm not a regular member, but maybe a little special guest.
Of course. No. Whenever you're not doing stuff, man.
That's 1 vote yes, 1 vote no. So let's see how Britt votes.
She was not going to say no.
That's awesome.
I'm down.
Love
We're all down.
Anytime you can. We wanted to bring her on, and then it also just made sense because
usually I'm not available because I got this stupid fantasy alarm chat, but I do want to sneak in every once in a while, say what up.
I'll bleep out that in case Howard Bender wants to check out.
I don't think you're allowed to say that anymore.
Howard, if you need a new host of the fantasy alarm chat, just you got my email.
I'll be on the chat. I got the chat here. My friends here. How you doing?
There you go. Absolutely. All right. We will head out for Gary Haddow, for Andrew Cooper. I'm Kevin Tompkins, and good luck in your week 1 and enjoy the football game tomorrow. Take care, everybody.